So I wanted to talk about something that I've been mulling over for the last 3 months on just how to try to communicate this without it sounding completely ridiculous. But I've basically come to the conclusion that that's probably how it's going to sound, so I might as well just give it a go. But I want to talk about something that happened to me 3 months ago that resulted in a physical change in my brain. And as a result, since that moment, I haven't experienced any negative emotion at all, with the exception of any sort of immediate danger or threat. And what I've identified the mechanism is, or as, is the separation of thought and emotions. In the sense that it used to be the case that for me, and I think for most people, you sit still and you can't stop thinking. And if you think about something you're worried about, or what someone thought of you, or what's coming up, and you don't know what to do, or you worry about the future, or you regret something you did in the past, or whatever it might be, you start feeling anxious, or if you read something on the internet, you get angry, or you start to worry, or you feel bored or excited, or some sort of excited in a negative way, like, oh, I got to do something, or those types of things, or sad, even just sorrow. And all of that completely came to an end in an instant, and has never come back. And all that I really ever experience in terms of the negative side is the worst I ever feel is just complete peace. Just like if you're relaxing on a nice day with nothing to do and you're like, oh, this is nice. Like that. You of course still feel all the good stuff, all the happy emotions and all the joy and pleasure and love and compassion, the same way that everyone else does already. But the reason I wanted to share is, first of all, I think I didn't know this was possible. And so I think that's interesting. But the second thing is, I think this phenomena has happened to other people before. But the real reason I wanted to share was because I think I know the mechanism by which this has happened. And I think by sharing that mechanism, other people can experience this as well. And I don't think this has ever been shared before. And that's what I wanted to talk about. So, to reiterate, this was really a physical change in the brain. It felt like a golf ball sized region in my head just deactivated. And for the next 3 days, it kind of felt like I'd usually it was almost like a habit of thinking something. And it would feel like the neurons or the electricity or whatever it might be moved to a certain region of the brain, and it just circled around an empty crater because it couldn't access that area. And then after about 3 days, it stopped trying, and it just feels back to normal now. And what I think this is whatever part of the region of the brain that is, it's responsible for fundamentally what we call the self-image. And typically, the way that it functions is it's always activated. The self-image is always activated. Effectively, it's parallel processing every single interaction that you have every moment of the day. Not just interaction, but it's just always on. So there's a parallel processing going on between your immediate perception through the senses. So your immediate perception of reality, which is connected to the emotions, obviously, because otherwise you'll get hit by a bus or something and not worry about it. So that's real. But then also in all of us, our self-image, which is our imagination, or what people think of us, how our life's going, how our life should be going, what our ideals are, what are our goals, what did we do yesterday, what we regret. It's always running, always, constantly. And it causes a feedback loop between emotions and thought, because your emotions trigger the thoughts and your thoughts trigger the emotions, and it's an infinite feedback loop. And that's why all of us, if we're not engaged with something, we literally cannot stop thinking and we cannot stop feeling something. And that ends. For me, that ended. It's sort of more like you can kind of think when you want to think. It's kind of like moving your hands. It operates independently from emotion. And so the real key that, again, I'm just saying the same thing, I suppose, but to really reiterate, the thing that I really want to share is this mechanism, which is, this is sort of what I think is going on. the part of your brain responsible for thoughts and imagination is connected to your emotions and your immediate perception of reality through what is almost like an umbilical cord, which is obviously just, the neurons in your brain connected in some way. But I'm using the word umbilical cord because I think the origin of this is developmental, not evolutionary, because the reason why to me this would have sounded so ridiculous if I heard this a year ago was because I would have thought, well, you can't change your brain. Like, it's been evolving for, probably millions, if not tens of millions, or, at least in humans, a few 100,000 years as our species. You can't change the brain. But the thing here is, I don't think it relates to evolution so much, rather the development since we were children, in the sense that you'd think, this part is a little speculative. I'm not exactly sure on the developmental side. I'm sure some people do, so they can correct me, but this is the theme. When we were infants, like, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and we weren't really conscious, we don't really have, we respond to the environment, but we don't remember it, is what I mean. We don't have any memories back then because memories haven't really even formed. We didn't have anything to remember because we hadn't experienced anything. So for when we're very, very young, we just have our immediate perception of reality and the emotions that go with it. From that immediate perception and those emotions, a part of the brain begins to develop that records that. And the recording of those experiences creates memory. And then from memory emerges the capacity to manipulate those memories with intelligence to create thought. So it just sort of remixes the memories into thoughts and ideas. And so the reason why your thoughts are connected to your emotions is because that's where that part of the brain effectively emerged from, if that makes any sense. And again, I'm not entirely certain about this part, so just take it with a grain of salt. But whatever there's like a tiny, tiny thread, like an umbilical cord, that runs from your emotions to your thoughts. That umbilical cord itself, I am suggesting, is kind of like a vestigial neuronal connection. It's like the scaffolding of a building that's never been taken down. And if you actually look at it and examine that umbilical cord completely, you realize, oh shit, this isn't actually needed at all. And that insight into the fact that it's not needed at all for any function ends it and disconnects it from thought. And it feels like, there's a physiological change in the brain that deactivates that center. And so the part that I want to emphasize, because I think this is the part that hasn't been really said before, is that umbilical cord itself, the way we experience that umbilical cord is what we call self-image. Self-image is in fact equivalent to believing that purple is a real color, when in fact purple is not a real color. It's a combination of red and blue. But because we have never examined this, we've never taken the scaffolding down, we just experience purple. What I'm suggesting is through very, very close analysis, inquiry. Some people use like meditation and stuff, but this is completely secular. This has nothing to do with meditation, nothing to do with spirituality. You don't need any of those tools, so to speak. But the examination of that umbilical cord, that connection itself, which is self-image, by looking at it very closely, you can realize that purple is not a color. There is just red and blue underneath. And when you realize, oh shit, it's just red and blue, they instantly separate, and you never experience any negative emotions ever again, with the exception of your immediate perception of reality. So if someone tries to hurt you, you're going to be angry or scared. If you watch a scary movie, that does in fact kind of trick your brain and you get scared. But if you're reading some idiot on the internet who's got a dumb opinion, no emotions at all. You're just perfectly at peace because it's just a thought. No one's hurting you. There's no danger. It's just a thought. They have a belief, you have a belief. It's just a churning of ideas. The thoughts have no emotional content at all. It is, as far as I'm able to understand, potentially not only the explanation, but the cure for depression, emotional personality disorders, such as borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. Again, I'm painting with a broad brush here. I'm sure there's instances like damage to your nervous system and stuff where it doesn't apply. But broadly speaking, I think it's the end of this sort of feeling in all of us that life isn't how it should be, or life could be better, or what's the meaning of life, in the sense that You don't ask anymore, oh God, my life is so bad, what am I meant to do? And you try to look for a solution. This is the end of the problem, if that makes any sense. You know, you don't have, not to be kind of weird about this, but you don't need a solution if there isn't a problem, if that makes any sense. People don't make you angry at all. It doesn't register. People don't make you anxious. If it's just like, hey, those shoes are ugly, you know, you're like, oh, okay. It's literally just a thought. And if you want to respond to that, you can just use your intelligence and your thinking to respond. You don't need emotions. Emotions don't even enter into the equation of, you know, your own ego, your own self-identity, your own self-image. People can't hurt you. You're just at perfect peace. And I want to really emphasize, this is not callousness. This is not some sort of immense stoicism of, you know, I'm just immune to the feelings. It's like, no. It's just, you realize that they're not there. There's no need to be, you know, you don't need the function of anxiety and fear and anger to respond to thoughts and ideas and things that are just in your imagination, so to speak. And so I hope this makes some degree of sense to people. I hope that I'm not sounding too crazy, although I probably will sound pretty crazy. But you know, I'll put up on my second channel, maybe I'll do a little bit of podcast explaining a bit more, because after this occurs, everything just makes so much more sense. In a way, just to one last point, it's like, you know, you take something like going to a party, and, you know, you're really excited to go to the party because you might meet new people and have fun, but also you're anxious and scared that you're going to make a fool of yourself and no one will be friends with you. So then why does it make any sense that you'd want to do something, but also be scared to do something? So why would you want to do something and not want to do something? And then when you don't do it, you feel like, oh, I'm missing out. Oh God, why didn't I go? And then you regret it. It's like, why is there this much confusion in all of us all the time? And the answer is because thoughts and emotions are not supposed to be connected. When they're separated, you just have one emotion all the time. Everything is clear. You're like, oh, do I want to go to this party? And your emotions are like, yes, you do. And you're like, okay, I'll go. And then if there's something, if you're worried about your social skills or something, then your intelligence can come in and think about it, where you're like, better brush up on my dancing before I go. But there's no need to worry. There's absolutely no need to worry. Every single action goes in accordance with one emotion. There's no parallel processing. There's no conflicting emotions. There's just one emotion in one circumstance all the time. And it's just, anyway, I just had to share this, not just the sort of experience. I know I've probably sound crazy, but I've been thinking about this for 3 months. I'm like, oh God, I have to tell people. I just don't know how. But the part that I really wanted to share is that mechanism, because I think it invites scientists or people who are just looking to go inquire themselves into the actual mechanism, because the only other place I've ever seen this discussed is like in religious texts and in spiritual texts and through like meditative circles. And, you know, most of it is like, you know, they hope to maybe do this, I think, as a byproduct, but 85% of it is just silliness. You know, you don't need to sit with your legs crossed and chant something, or try to focus on your breath, or try to, you know, find your original conscious or whatever. You find your original face and become the universal you don't need to do that. This is just a very secular phenomena, and I think this is the mechanism, and I wanted to open that up for people to think about and look into more. So I hope I'm not too crazy. Probably am. Probably already a little bit crazy. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.